YouTube Ozick going. The Goat House is back. And a wild trade went down last night in the NFL. Matthew Stafford to the Rams, and the Lions get Jared Goff. You guys know what happened. But as soon as this happened, we were breaking it down instantly. All my thoughts on Twitter. So you definitely want to follow that Twitter for anything that happens. But then we cover it, all these trades and everything NFL. On the channel. So please subscribe as well. It'd be much appreciated. Smash that like button while you're at it. Link in the description and comments for anything you need. In this video, I'm going to break down the trade, my positives and negatives for both teams in the trade, and give you grades for both teams here. So again, follow this Twitter. This is kind of from last night. I mean, it's just nonstop. And we kind of predicted Jared Goff. If you remember our video last week, trade candidates who could become trade candidates, we kind of thought Jared Goff would be made a trade candidate there. But a lot going on this Twitter at GoatHouse NFL. Go check it out. And you guys can go vote right now. I'll pin a link in the comments for this. Decide it app. You guys vote for who won the deal in your opinion. And then after you vote, you give your reasoning why. And then whoever pretty much has the best reasoning or take will get the most likes. And then you'll get points for that. And then with points, you win Amazon gift cards. Every week, 10 Amazon gift cards are given out every single week. So now's your chance to get involved in that. Again, I'll pin a link directly to this in the comments there. But yeah, the trade, which you guys pretty much know, probably everyone knows about right now. But the Rams get Matthew Stafford, the Lions quarterback. Big time, strong arm quarterback will break all that down. But and they definitely get better at the quarterback position. But and then the Lions, get Jared Goff, of course, and they get his contract where they get a third-round pick this year in 2021, first-round pick in 2022 and 2023. So that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. I knew Jared Goff could be involved in this deal. Wasn't really thrilled the idea of the Lions getting Jared Goff, but I did not expect them to get that many picks at the same time. So, so that's the details. We'll go on to my positives for the Rams. I'll give you my positives and negatives for the Rams, and then I'll give you their grade, in my opinion. And then we'll do the same thing for the Lions after that. So the Rams, the positives, they got better at QB. Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, and that kind of goes into the next thing. They improved the downfield passing game. Matthew Stafford has an incredible arm, strength. So they're going to open more things up downfield. They're going to trust their quarterback more. You could see they didn't really trust McVay. Didn't really trust Goff a whole bunch, and they were had a pretty wide variety of plays in the playbook, pretty good playbook, but it was kind of being limited a little bit. Not, I've seen much worse. But now things get open downfield, and that just stretches the field. It stretches the defense. Teams will fear the deep ball, so that will open up things for the run game. Guys like Cam Akers a bit more. So, better at QB, and that could open things up for the offense in general. So the offense should be better. They in this deal, they cleared $2.42 million, which isn't a lot. It's not a whole bunch, but trading Jared Goff and taking in Matthew Stafford, saving money, any kind of money is a positive to me. So they actually saved $2.42 million in 2021. Cap space is still a bit of a mess, though. We'll talk about that for this year, so it doesn't really do a whole bunch there. And then they clear for 2022. They're going to clear that entire cap hit of $32.3 million. So that's a big piece to this trade and how I'll grade it. That $32.3 million in 2022. It's a lot of money cleared. And then in 2023, they cleared $8.6 million, and then in 2024, they cleared $1.8 million. These aren't major positives. They're barely even positives. I mean, you save some money there, so that's good. But essentially, Jared Goff, his deal, it was a 4-year deal, but really it was a 2-year deal. They were only locked in for 2 years. So they could have cut him and they would have lost. They really would have cleared money. That was going to be the dead cap right there. So that's really not a big deal, but at the end of the day, they did save that money. And we talked about it since they cleared that $32.3 million in 2022. They potentially could have a big, not this offseason, 2022 offseason, potentially have a huge 2022 offseason. So that's pretty big. So that's a huge positive right there, kind of that clearing that 32.3 combined with the resulting in the big 2022 offseason, maybe, and improving the downfield game to open up the rest of the offense. So those are major major positives. Let's take a look at the negatives here for the Rams in this trade. They're better at QB, but are they the better team? Kind of a question mark. I talked about how the offense in general could be better because they stretch the field. But I think there's a lot of mistakes, especially on this negative page. There's a lot of mistakes people are making right now. They're not realizing things, and this is one of them. People just think, well, Matthew Stafford on that Rams team that we just saw 2 weeks ago play the Packers, we saw beat the Seahawks, that is deadly. And you're in a way, you're right. It's pretty damn good, but it's not the same team as it was 2 weeks ago. They have a long list of big-time free agents, and they're pretty far, and we'll talk about the cap space situation, but they're pretty far, over the cap, negative. So they're really not the same team. They got better at quarterback. I think their offense should be better, but are they better as a team? John Johnson, Darius Williams, Troy Hill, Leonard Floyd, Josh Reynolds, Gerald Everett, those are kind of smaller ones, even though I did like the way Reynolds played this last year. Offensive linemen, they probably got to retool. There's a couple of free agents there. Whitworth's 40 years old. So is it the better roster, I should say? That's probably what should be used, because they could be the better team just by, because quarterback makes up so much. And we got to circle back to that, though, because quarterback, that would be the debate against them. Yes, they're a better team because quarterback decides most of that, and that's a valid point. But are they the better roster, I guess, the point? We'll circle back to the quarterback makes up most of the team because that's important. But paid big to clear 2 Goff years. Another mistake people are making. People are like, wow, yes, it was worth it to trade that much because Jared Goff had 4 years left on his deal. They saved 4 years of worth of money. 4 years left on his deal? True, but they didn't save 4 years worth of money. They saved 2. He was only locked in for 2 years. There's a small amount of dead cap we talked about that they saved in the next 2 years. So essentially, they cleared 2 years. They spent that much in picks, to get Matthew Stafford and to clear 2 years of Goff. To do so. So that kind of makes the window smaller. So this needs to pay off within 2 years, is in my eyes, the way I look at that. They don't have a first-round pick until 2024. That's pretty ridiculous. I'm a believer in building a championship team through the draft. That's been proven, and I've always been a believer in that. You can still do that without first-round picks, but it's a much, much more challenging. Some of these offensive players coming out now and ones we're looking at in the future, too, that are just lock first-round picks, they're insanely impact players too, so it's a little tough. I view it as a 2-season Super Bowl window. Matthew Stafford has 2 years left in his contract. They could of course extend him. They got a lot of guys that are kind of in their prime, though. Are these guys like Matthew Stafford, some other guys, going to be as good then? Again, the main reason to trading that much away was to clear that next 2 years of Goff's deal, because they could have cleared it by default with Goff after that. So for multiple reasons there, it feels like a two-season Super Bowl window. And it almost feels like one of those trades. And pretty much every trade, I grade every trade instantly, but pretty much every one, it's really, you kind of got to wait and see what happens for the most part. I kind of grade it based on value, but at the time, like I do in here. But this is the ultimate. We got to wait and see, because this is one of those trades where if they don't win the Super Bowl, and winning the Super Bowl, it's tough. It's really hard. If they don't win the Super Bowl, it's an F. It really is, and they kind of got 2 years to do that, and that's pretty tough. If they win the Super Bowl, it's an A+. So it's a little, it's kind of, I'm not a Rams fan, but it's kind of nerve-wracking at the same time. Like, we got 2 years to do this. We got some free agents this year. They're still it's the last one there. They're still well over the cap in 2021. They're well into the negative. They're going to have to restructure, cut some guys. They don't have too many guys they can cut. It's going to be very tough, be very tough. They're going to be a good team whether they stay the way they are right now or, whether they do or don't. But, you want to get better. You want to make yourself a Super Bowl team. You're not just a Super Bowl team just like that. No way. So there's some pressure. It's a lot of pressure on this, because there really is a window for them to win the Super Bowl. With this trade, there really is. And if you're saying there's not, you're lying to yourself. Plain and simple. Stafford has injury concern. This has popped up at the end of seasons quite a bit. He's pretty tough. He tries to play through them. He does play through them sometimes, so we're not knocking him in that category at all. But it's really hasn't been a good thing. It's kind of been a part of a reason the Lions could struggle sometimes at the end of the year. Is Stafford a consistent winner? That's kind of been a knock, and that kind of goes back up to what I was saying earlier in this, that they're the better team, even if they lose other guys, because they got better at quarterback. Quarterback makes up everything. Well, why weren't the Lions winning then? That's kind of, it's not really, I'm not really stating Stafford isn't, well, it's not said there anyways, is or isn't a consistent winner. It's a question mark, and there's risk here because, and here's a fact. The great quarterbacks find ways. Great quarterbacks can carry teams. Stafford he hasn't done that. It feels like every offseason, for as long as I can remember, people start bringing back up Stafford, and it's going to be the Lions' year because remember, Stafford's a really good quarterback, and yes, but they end up the same spot. The Rams have a better roster. He's had some pretty damn good receivers, and their offensive line wasn't too bad this year. The Rams' offensive line was actually better than expected. On paper, it's worse than the Lions, and they got some guys. They got what's Whitworth going to do? A couple free agents there, but yeah, because I think down the stretch of the season, Goff felt like he was getting worse because he was pressured more. Stafford isn't really good under pressure anymore. He can't escape it, so that's kind of a negative as well. And there's been games that they've been close in. For some reason, it feels like a lot of NFC North games, so I guess he doesn't have to deal with those teams anymore, but he's dealing with the 49ers, Seahawks, and Cardinals. And a lot, they were in those games, and he would throw an interception in the red zone or something. So Stafford has that ability to kind of take it away at the same time. He's a very good quarterback, but great quarterbacks find ways. They don't win 5 games in a year. They find ways, and they find ways to carry teams if they need to. And he's had some damn good receivers too. And they're still well over cap, like I said, 2021. So they're basically banking on 2022. That 2022 year is big. So this is relying on basically them winning a Super Bowl in a 2-year window and them actually making those big moves that they should make, but nothing's guaranteed because teams have to agree to sign with you in 2022. So we're kind of got to wait and see on a lot of things. This grade might be generous the more I'm talking. B-. I originally had it around the C range, honestly, because they traded more than Stafford's value. And people were like, well, they had to get rid of Goff's contract, and they did. That was big for 2022, but it wasn't 4 years of Goff's contract. People don't realize that. It was really 2 years. So they still did give up too much, in my opinion. You're not going to be picking, and people say, well, they picked pretty well in the mid-rounds. Yeah, but is that really, you still don't have first-round picks, It's pretty tough, but it's okay if they make those big moves in 2022. That's kind of what bumped it up because I really feel like they will. I think 2022 offseason is will, and they'll be a damn good team. Potentially can make a run in 2021 here upcoming season. But there really is only a handful, and that might be generous, teams that can win a Super Bowl. Maybe quarterbacks that can win a Super Bowl. There really is. So it's going to be tough to actually win the Super Bowl in 2021. 2022, I'm believing with that cap space that they've freed up because they're going to have to. They're going to have to go big. They almost have to overpay for the big-time players, like overpay by a couple million just because if they fail to get some of those guys, it's not a good look. But they're going to make it a championship roster in 2022. So then it's on Stafford staying healthy and them executing in the big game. So 2022 I keep saying it, that is the big year, and I'm kind of confident. I'm not saying they're going to go win the Super Bowl, not this year, next year, 2022 season. I'm not saying that, but I'm confident about them being a legit contender. They better be, or this grade goes down. And then if they don't win the Super Bowl, it goes down even further. So there's a lot of pressure. I'm feeling it, and I'm not even a Rams fan, and I'm feeling it. So, yeah, they got work to do. Clear some space this year if they can. The way the team looks right now, factor in who's free agents, that might be pretty similar to how the team looks. In a recent NFC West cap fix video, I restructured Aaron Donald's contract. We talked more about that. And you can potentially clear a lot with that, so that's a good sign. But overall here, why I was almost in that C range is because, they specifically have to do things and that are not easy to do, and they traded away a lot of picks. We think they got better here, so I did bump it up to a B-, and 2022 is going to be huge for them. So B-. Lions. Let's talk about the Lions. Look at Goff with his headset on. Positives. Got more than Stafford's value. I mean, that was for sure. I think another thing that kind of goes unnoticed here is, they got a quarterback. Goff isn't. People get on him too much. He's. I'm not even calling him good, but there's a shortage on, there's 32 NFL teams. Are there 32 legit quarterbacks? Absolutely not. Jared Goff is better than a chunk of those guys that are starting for teams. He's got experience. I mean, he went to the Super Bowl. I mean, winning the Super Bowl is a whole different ball game. But that applies to Stafford as well. Stafford hasn't really been able to do much either. But yeah, they got Goff has some value in my opinion. I know he has some value, but there are some negatives, obviously, and we'll talk about that. In bringing in Goff. But yeah, I mean they got the 7th pick this year, and then they're gonna have 2 first rounds next year from themselves, which should be pretty good. And then the Rams, and there's no guarantee. Based on the 2021 season, there's no guarantee the Rams are going to be great. New face at quarterback. They're going to lose some guys in free agency. That pick could be, it's not going to be a great pick, but you get my point. You got a 3rd this year, and then you got another 1st in 2023. So that's a lot. You're going to have, just the fact that you have 2 first-round picks in consecutive drafts, that's pretty big. They did decline some offers that included a first-round pick this year, but yeah, I know specifically one from Washington. They declined. They didn't decline. I guess they took this deal instead. That involved the 19th pick. If there was something, higher, I think the Niners might have been involved. So I don't know. That's tough. And they like Goff. I think that's why. 3 picks to assist in the rebuild. They're definitely in rebuild mode. They weren't going to win now at Stafford, so it's good to get rid of Stafford and, assist in the rebuild. That makes sense. You have plenty of ammo to trade up. So they're sitting there at pick 7, and there's a pretty big difference, I think, between guys like, let's just say Zach Wilson goes 2. So there's a pretty big difference between, or maybe they want to trade with the Jets, but I guess combine Zach Wilson or put in the same category Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. Put those guys in the same category, and then you got Mac Jones and Trey Lance, who are pretty solid, that can go around that 7 range. Good prospects, but there's a pretty big gap between the first 2 I named and the second 2. So if you want to trade up for a guy like Wilson or Justin Fields, you have the ammo to do that. You might have some picks left over even, and you have Jared Goff. I know you got another quarterback then, but it's pretty good. That's pretty good. Did they actually get worse? I was talking about this morning on Twitter. It's kind of why I wanted to sleep on this deal. It's such a big deal because I think of some things that really clicked to me. After thinking on some of these deals a bit, but the Lions, we talked about it. The Rams offense got better. They got better at quarterback, plain and simple. Did the Lions get worse though? That usually means the other team got worse. Did they get worse? Are they going to be they're going to decline from a 5-win team? And let's be honest, they're pretty consistently bad. They had a good year a few years ago. But are they going to decline from a 5-win team because of this deal? I don't think so. Maybe they could be the same, and that doesn't mean 5 wins, just, talent level around the same performance from the team. I don't think so. So they don't actually feel like they got worse. That's a big positive here. This is a big positive because, even if they did, it's slightly, they're not all of a sudden, it might be a knock on Stafford because how could he not win more than 5 games? I know he's missed some time, but with some injuries. But, and they got all those draft picks out of this too, and they're going to start the rebuild. So that to me, that's a big positive. They got younger and healthier at quarterback. They didn't get better, but they got younger and healthier. So that's something for the future. And again, Stafford, was it last year? Last year, not this past season, 2019 season. It felt like they were going to be a threat in the NFC North until Stafford got hurt, and they just lost every game. So being healthier with a veteran quarterback, pretty good thing. No Goff dead cap in 2023 and 2024. We kind of touched on that with the Rams deal in the Rams section here because it's essentially a 2-year deal. And the good thing here is the Rams have had dead cap if they kept him, but the Lions do not. So they can cut him. It's a good thing because, they got him for 2021, 2022. If he stinks, you cut him, you lose $0, and you still got those draft picks. $0 for both years. If he plays well and you like him, then he's back for 2023. And then if he doesn't play well, then you save that money for 2024. If you like him, then he's back for 2024. So it's almost like it's not an option. Those aren't option years, but in a way, it's almost like that. So they're only locked into Goff for 2 years there. So, there's some positives there for the Lions. The more I talk about it, the more I like it. One of those situations. And then we go to the negatives here. They lose. This one's a pretty bad one because you would think you're sending away Stafford, you're sending away a big quarterback, big-time contract quarterback for another one in Jared Goff. You would think it's somewhere around even. They actually lose in 2021 $13.25 million doing this deal. So that's pretty bad, and that kind of goes into the next point here. That puts them at a projected it's projected, but the numbers ballpark where they'll be over the cap. So they weren't negative, now they're negative cap space wise. This going into this year, they can make cuts, restructures and there's some veteran cuts they can make that won't be part of the rebuild that'll get them positive. I'm confident after they make those moves necessary that they will be positive, but barely. And they can get it further in that, so they can kind of get back to where they were. So that kind of brings up the question: can they sign Ket? No, it's supposed to say key players. So not the Ket players, the key players. And that's a big question when you're over the cap. Kenny Golladay is a must resign in my opinion. I know he's been hurt a little bit, but I love me some Kenny Golladay. That guy, tremendous talent. Still I think has upside. I think he's a total package guy. I'm trying to find like a flaw in his game. People view him as a contested catcher guy, but he has so much more than that. Like, I think he's the best free agent receiver this year. I don't have to think about that. So, hopefully they don't lose him. Maybe he refuses to play for them. Maybe they franchise and trade him. If they don't have him next year, it freaking better be because he refused for some reason to play for them. That's going to be bad. This deal's going to look much worse. Goff has a $25.5 million cap hit in 2022, so you've seen them suffer that 13 this year, 25 in 2022. So even if he ends up playing well, that's still a big number, still a pretty big number. And again, we talked about it. He's not locked into 23 and 2024, but it's still worth noting that $25 million cap hit. If you keep him, again, if you cut him, you clear all of that, every penny of that. But it's worth noting, $25 million and $26 million cap hit in those years if he's on the team. So, but if he's on the team, it's probably because he's playing well, so it's not the worst negative. Rebuild could take longer. Teams, back in the day, rebuilds used to take forever, and sometimes they still can, but it seems like teams are turning around pretty damn quick these days with, the impact with draft, players in the draft, and that's a positive for the Lions because they got more draft picks, but you also got to dive into free agency as well, and I think having that cap hit from Goff for this year, next year, and maybe the years after that, you're not going to be able to do too much in free agency, so you have to rely on the draft, and we'll see what they're all about with this new, it's a new front office. That's fantastic. That's good news for the Lions because it was atrocious before. Yeah, they're going to have to rely on the draft. I do believe in building championship teams through the draft. It's just going to take a little longer without free agency, so it's really not that big of a deal. It just might take a little longer. Here's a big one to me. It could be great. It could be good. It could be bad. I don't know if it could really be good, but it could work out. It could be bad. They could potentially pass on a QB because they have Goff. And I think Goff he's almost at the point where he's underrated mainly because people give him so much smack. They just smack talk him so much, and sometimes he deserves it. And he's not. I'm not even calling him a good quarterback, but it's one of those guys that people get on a little too much. But at the same time, you're trusting, Goff in the new system, and the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. Remember that. Is Goff going to win a Super Bowl? Probably not. So, and you can ask that same question about Stafford too, but. It's a very good quarterback class. You have the ability to trade up a little bit if you need to, or stay put, take a guy like Lance and Mac Jones. Mac Jones is another guy where people are sleeping on way too much. Take a guy like that, and that could be the quarterback of the future and be a big part of the rebuild. But they could pass on that just to trust Jared Goff, and, what's the chances it works out that he ends up being, this guy could win a Super Bowl, Probably not that high, So they could potentially hurt themselves, but then people will say they got next year. And that's true, but you can't really predict the future. You know where you sit in the draft right now. And next year, the way I'm grading them right now, we got a whole nother year, and there's always end up being surprises. But Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler are the only ones I'm grading in the first round, and Sam Howell will be number one for me. But there's at least 3 quarterbacks in this class better than anybody in that class. And you have to be in position to even get those guys. So that's a lot of risk in that. There's a lot of risk in that. So we'll grade them, and I gave them slightly better grade than the Rams here. I gave them a B. These are tough to grade, They got the picks of the future. The rebuild might be delayed a little bit, I suppose. Well, it's going to start now, but so and there might not have too much wiggle room to do things because they took in Goff. But again, they got all those picks, and Goff could be a solid quarterback for them. But and it rides on a lot too. If they shoot themselves in the foot and pass on quarterbacks because of this, if they let a guy like Kenny Golladay walk, it hurts a little bit. But I originally talked about like a week ago. I didn't really want the Lions to trade for Jared Goff, taking in that contract and getting they'll probably get a pick with it, but they end up getting a lot more picks than I thought they would, and they can actually get zero dead cap. The second half of the contract. So those are somewhat positives and made me come up a bit on the Lions deal, but at the end of the day, they got rid of Stafford. He wasn't part of the rebuild. They weren't winning with him anyways. Even though he's viewed as a good quarterback, they weren't winning with him anyways, and they got a good amount of picks out of that. So I gave it a B here. We'll see what they do in the future. I think the difference here is the Rams are a lot of pressure. They're pretty limited. They got a window. They got to make things happen pretty quick. And 2 years is short, I think. Amount of time. So. That is the way I graded these. Definitely a tough grade. A lot of wait and see. Definitely changes the draft a little bit. Like we said, what are the Lions going to do? They still going to go quarterback. What they can't do is just scratch off the quarterbacks on their board. They can't do that. They got to do their homework still. And they got to, if this guy's here, they don't want to trade up. That's fine. If this guy's here and he's that good, you got to take him, So we'll see what happens there. We'll be covering the draft. We'll be covering free agency. We have a whole bunch of free agency videos on the channel, mock drafts on the channel. Senior Bowl risers and fallers went up last night. Check that out. So constant NFL content more than anybody out there. So hopefully you can join us, subscribe, turn notifications on, smash the like button. Check out that Twitter. It's an absolute must follow for my instant takeaways and thoughts on things like this. And check it out. That's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.